RooshV on this channel before. I did a decently, not a decently long video, but a fairly exhaustive video going over his past, where he was a pickup artist of sorts. He had a lot of books he wrote that were basically just him talking about his sexual escapades. Wow, that is way louder than I thought it would be. Anyway, but basically just talking about his sexual escapades in any given country that he went to. Now, after a while, when people, and from a marketing perspective, I think this is around the time people caught on that pickup artists were bullshit. Around the time that people started realizing that pickup artists were bullshit, RooshV changed tact. He became a devout Catholic, but a very particular kind of Catholic. Very much the Nick Fuentes kind of Catholic. The interviews with E. Michael Jones, the Jews are controlling the world, that kind of Catholic. I don't know if he's necessarily a sedevacantist, which are the people who believe that the Pope isn't legitimate. I don't know. But I do know that he changed his brand from pickup artist to born-again Catholic Christian, kind of. In fact, actually, if I were to go over to his channel real quick, if it still exists, I'm actually not sure if it still exists. Does it? I don't know if it does. I mean, we've got this stuff here. I'm not actually finding his channel. I'm seeing a book review from his. Meet RooshV, the men's rights activist who advocates legal rape, which I already did a video on his legal rape thing. Basically, he argues that it should be legal to rape because then it will force women to protect themselves better or act better. If women cannot have the protection from rape from the law, then they will protect themselves. It's a very stupid argument, but apparently he's been taken off YouTube, which is good. I'm glad. YouTube is already a cesspool, so them cleaning up a little bit of the shit is nice. But from pickup artist to chastity mentor, because he went from pickup artist again to a Catholic born again type of deal, like, hey, you know, I used to be this horrible person, but now I'm a good Catholic boy. But when he does the good Catholic boy thing, he does it like a Nazi. So I don't know if good in quotations Catholic boy is actually the way we can go about this. But I do want to go over a tweet of his real quick. Now that I've given a bit of a primer on who Roosh is, what his history was, where he is now, let's look at what he's doing at this moment. This is from last month, November 5th, 2020. And of course, it's 2020, where all bad things go to die, right? 2020 is where all things go to meet their final end. When a Time Lord, not necessarily a Time Lord, but when a time traveler exists in the far-flung future, when they need to exile their people, they will use our 2020 as the timeline they exile them to. And that will be the punishment for prisoners. An endless loop of 2020, beginning in March. But from Roosh, Donald Trump is the Christian leader of my nation. Remember, he did his Catholic conversion thing, so now he's a good old Christian boy. The constitutional and rightful authority given to me by my God. He needs only to tell us what he wants us to do, and I will obey. So this is, again, it's coming from Roosh. This is a very, very agitating thing to see, but it's also not really out of character for him in the persona that he exists in right now. Why is this agitating? Well, consider this. If you, as an influencer, say that Trump is given to you by God, and because of that, if Trump says something that must be law given by God, then you will do it. What kind of predicament does this create? Well, here's the world that gets created by this kind of mindset. Now, again, remember, this is RooshV. He's an influencer. How big is his platform on Twitter? 84.1K, which is fairly large for Twitter's numbers. If you accept that type of worldview, if Donald Trump wins, it is because God wanted him to win. But what happens if Donald Trump loses? Well, you have a couple of answers. The honest answer would be that your omnipotent God is not actually omnipotent and therefore did not have the power to keep Donald Trump in power. That's one. Another answer, another slightly honest one, would be that that's what God wanted, but it didn't happen because Satan's interference, which brings into question who's more powerful, God or Satan. It also brings into question another fun little theological conundrum, which is if a being is omnipotent, they can do all things. Can they have desires? Because a desire is wanting to do something. But if you're a being who's omnipotent, if you want to do something, it would manifest. The reason that this ends up functioning, this is why if you believe that God is both omnipotent and wants Trump to be president, and then if Trump doesn't become president, this creates a really weird, shattering worldview for you. An omnipotent being, if they truly desire one thing, that thing will manifest, because that's the thing they desire. Now, what if they desire it but don't do it? Well, the reason we as human beings, if we have a thing we desire, the reasons we don't do it is because we have another desire that outweighs it. So, for instance, I want to get up and go to the store, but right now my desire is to lay in bed. Now, that could be for a myriad of reasons. For me, it's probably going to be my anxiety, my depression. It could just be that I'd rather be on my phone, but I've got a desire that outweighs it. But in the conversation where we're talking about a God, we're talking about a singular desire not outweighed by anything else. If they desire something, it can and should manifest. Practically immediately, because they are omnipotent. So what happens to your worldview? What happens to the worldview of somebody like Roosh if Donald Trump does not become president, which of course we know he's not going to? If this happens, Roosh has to either accept that the God that he's serving is not omnipotent, or he's got to try to dance around this somehow. Well, God's bigger plan is that he wants something to happen to the world, and we don't know his plan. It's very mysterious, but it's very funny whenever you get the God's mysterious plan thing alongside the knowing for sure 110% of the time that Trump is definitely God's chosen person. You know that 110%. There's no question on that. But when it comes to the question of God's true wants and desires, well, those are mysterious. Those are in a special category. But Trump, no, we have to know that one. That one's gotta be real. Trump's gotta be his man. Now, realistically, why is Trump's God's chosen man? There's a lot of Christians, not all. There's Christians in my audience who don't operate this way, and there's Christians in my family who don't operate this way, and there's other Christians I've talked to who don't operate this way. But there are a wide swath of them that believe that people are godly because their idea of godly is based on their internal mechanisms that determine their own internal morality. And God's morality must align with that. If you hate the gays, God hates the gays. But if you don't hate the gays, then God is all loving, so he can't hate the gays. That's a thing that we get a lot with a good chunk of Christians. Their version of God's wants and desires will strangely coalesce with their personal ones. RooshV is a piece of shit human being. Literally argued for legal rape. He's made tons of books about his sexual escapades with women. And not just, oh, I had sex with this wonderful woman. It was ways in which he was predatory, ways in which he did things that he's honestly said, if I did these things in America, I would have been arrested. A person like that is usually going to be very attracted to someone like Donald Trump. Not sexually. I don't know why anybody would want pizza-encrusted mushroom dick that much. But they find people like Trump very, very attractive. Because they want to be someone like Trump, where they can do the things that Trump do, where they can have an ego the way Trump does, and get away with it the way Trump does. That's what RooshV's character has been for ages. A person who wishes he could get away with the stuff that Trump does. And when he can't, he goes to a country where he can. And yeah, vile. Donald grab him by the pussy Trump. That. They idolize Trump because they want to be someone like Trump. And because they idolize Trump and are Christian, in an ad hoc rationalization, they associate their internal Christianity with their external judgment of Trump. They like Trump and they are internally a Christian, so Trump must have internalized similar Christian values, and he must be a good Christian operator the same way they are. And again, I ask, what happens to the worldview of someone like this when Trump loses? Usually, I think what happens is they have to mechanize some way for this to be justified. Again, God's mysterious plan. But, Trump being God's prophet or whatever was not God's mysterious plan. That was that one they knew for a fact, but then when he lost, it was part of God's mysterious plan. Almost as if they don't know what they're talking about and they move the goalpost every time. So I think what happens is that worldview is almost always maintained because there's always a way of moving the goalpost on that worldview. Instead of just being honest and taking the God's mysterious plan all the time and just going, I don't know if he's God's chosen person. I think he might be. That'd be more honest, right? Because you don't really know. You think you know. Roosh thinks he knows because Roosh is a piece of garbage, and because Trump's a piece of garbage, he looks in the mirror and he sees a person who wants to be Trump, so that person must also be the same type of Christian he is, whether or not Trump is actually a Christian. Their worldview does not really get shattered, but you'd think that it would, but it's not a worldview, at least for people like Roosh. I don't think it's held honestly. So they can't really have it be shattered because the goalposts are just going to get moved. And again, it's because their estimation of this person's Christian value or value as a Christian is based entirely on bullshit. Not a whole lot to talk about where Roosh is concerned right now. I could take some time going through his Twitter if I really, really wanted to. But maybe for another video. We've got stuff like Satan's gonna try again because he's got posts on here. 15 signs you might be in an abusive relationship, and talks about an abusive relationship with the government. Ignoring the fact that he's done all of these things and has been honest about those things in his book. There's a lot to get into with Roosh if we really, really, really wanted to get into it. But I did want to use at least that tweet and his history as a bit of an expose on this kind of mentality, as it were.